I sometimes get a little animated and carried away, so this way I don't sweat profusely. I was really about it because I think this is a neat thing to do between in this Lenten season is to pick a topic that's challenging and challenges your thoughts and your brain. Just I love that kind of thing, and so I commend you guys on do that, and Peter for probably coming up with the idea. And I admire Peter. I think he does a tremendous. I've known Taylor a really long time, and in his encouraging words, he said, now Joe Johnson's preached or talked last time, and he's like really good. Thank you, Taylor. I really am pleased to be here, and I do enjoy this. This is good for me, and it's good to me to be a part of sharing my faith and how all that intertwines with politics. I mean, I almost even don't like the word politics, so I'm going to use it anyway. I was, just to tell you just quickly before I start getting into this, which is not but 13 minutes, so don't panic. I get a lot of gigs that I get to go out and do every day, and it could be anything. Like this week is, if you didn't know, is like Dr. Seuss week, and we're celebrating teachers, and if I can see some of you ladies, yes. So I've read to a couple of classes in 4th grade, 5th grade. I'm going to read to one on Friday, and then I may be in a meeting where we're discussing. Which we did. We had a public commission public session on the honeysuckle corridor study, and so we're looking at honeysuckle. How do you? So we go from light to heavy, and then today I got to go to Wesley Manor, and light. I mean, that's fun. I had gotten through talking, and there was some of the ladies that were there, mostly ladies. They were coming, and I was walking along, shaking hands with everybody, and she leaned over and bless her heart, she was having a difficult time because I think she had some dementia, and so I leaned in and I was trying to hear her, and she was trying to speak, and she couldn't get out what she wanted to say, and so I said, well, I love your role. She had an Alabama. I'm sorry, and I'm an Alabama fan. She had a Alabama jacket on, and I said, well, Roll Tide, I love your jacket. And she started to smile, and the lady that was with her said she can't sometimes get her thoughts together. And then she leaned up, and I said, the lady with her said, yes, her name is Fritz. Well, good. I thought you were saying something else, and she just died laughing. I worried about coming up with a little joke, and then that happened today, and I thought, man, that's just too good not to share. So anyway, thank y'all for having me. What I'm going to do is I like to, in this setting, write my thoughts out, and because if I get up here, I may forget what I wanted to say. And so if you'll allow me that right to do so tonight, and then, of course, I know we have an opportunity to talk and afterwards, if you would like, if you have any questions, really, and ask some tough questions, because I like to be put on the spot. And so it hones my skills. And before I get started, I have to always give a shout out. I don't always use my sister's very talent. She's the one in the back there. But she's very talented at writing, and she and I collaborated on this tonight, so I always like to give credit where credit is partially due. And she is the most talented of our family in writing, and by far. And so thank you, Anna Marie. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Because I believe that faith precedes politics. In fact, it precedes almost everything. I want to start with the foundation of my faith. Some of you that know me may also know that I grew up in an interdenominational home. My father, he was an elder and lifelong time member of Evergreen Presbyterian Church. And my mother, she went Church of Christ. And matter of fact, even to this day, I mean, she's been going there some 60 years. So it was Park Avenue Church of Christ, and now at this point, it's, it is Westgate Church of Christ. And so for those of you who might not be as familiar with those congregations, they seem to me and my siblings growing up as far from each other as possibly to claim a Christian heritage. Almost as different as, well, mom and dad were. And as much as the parents had, as my parents had worked through and compromised about other things as they were beginning to, in their marriage, they could not agree on a church. So, they did, however, agree on the importance of sharing their beliefs with us, both public and in private, and of teaching us not just the ethics, but morals, and of imposing the discipline of commitment through regular church attendance, generous giving, establishing relationships with others who were also trying to know and follow God. Wake up to the smell of bacon and pancakes, Mama's favorite Sunday special breakfast. And for just a moment, we would think, okay, is it Mr. Slaughter's at Evergreen Sunday School Catechism, or is it Park Avenue with Bible drills? Is it This Is My Father's World with Mr. Roy's head bobbing over the organ, getting into it, or 6 verses of Just As I Am led by Mr. Flatt, waving in his hand and leading us? And then it'd be my brother who would lean over and go, "It's time to Mark," because he was really hungry, and if somebody didn't go down, we were not going to finish that service that day. So he would always try to get me to go down. Yes, there were differences, and vast ones it seemed to us, and all the whole back and forth could seem confusing. I never thought it that way. And it really worked. Matter of fact, in spite of all the differences, looking back, it seems abundantly clear, I think, to all of us, that some of the most important life lessons that we learned were at both churches. We learned that family didn't just mean the 5 of us that lived over on 506 Rosemont Drive, or even our bigger Saliba clan that got together at holidays and weddings, or even the New Hope clan that the names were Carpenters, my mother's maiden name, and that we would visit up in North Alabama. We were part of not 1 or 2 or 3, but 5 families. And those 2 church families, Evergreen and Church of Christ, we discovered brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and cousins and many of those that were like grandparents to us. And they showed us all love, God's love, more than anything else. Family feeling of being welcome and valued and held accountable by people. God, who created the world and me, loved us both. They love us. That God's love creates in me a grateful spirit for a second response. And those of you that know us at home, I had 2 really great role models from parents of love, made served on every church building committee, as you can imagine being a builder's wife, for several decades. And she was the go-to caretaker for all of the older generations of her adopted in-law family. And I can't count on the number of, on my hands, the number of roasts. Of course, she still makes a great roast today for widowed Aunt Vicky and Aunt Maureen. And in her larger family at Park Avenue Church of Christ, she spent hours visiting shut-ins, taking meals to grieving spouses, and rocking babies, her favorite thing in the nursery on Sunday mornings and Wednesday evenings. And then there was my dad. I never had much trouble thinking about God as a father figure because I had the utmost respect for my father. And Alfred Saliba set pretty high standards for me and for others, but never higher than his expectations for himself. Early on, be like him, a person who loved God, family, community, country. He loved his employees like they were nieces and nephews, and he was a citizen who strove in every endeavor to make this community a better place for his children, his grandchildren, and your children. So I had no problem when, at the start of my campaign, many people, even some of the folks who campaigned for my father in the late 80s, would amble up, smiling a little slyly, and they would lean in and they would say, You got some mighty big shoes to fill, don't you? And I would, knew they were mostly talking about my father. We're talking about Mayor was and it still is. This whole shoe issue from the very beginning in my campaign announcement. I showed I have a shoes that I keep, and I picked them up and I put them on the podium, and then I pulled my work boots that I happen to be sporting today. And even at Mike Smith's roast, showing a pair of kid-sized shoes, insinuating that's his shoes, and then having my work boots compared to him, and as a my commitment to the city of Dothan. But still, after 6 months of job, folks want to make comparisons. Matter of fact, at Wesley Manor they did today. I love my dad, and Mike is a great friend. But the ultimate role model that I have chosen never wore shoes. Sandals would have been his preference. And as a teen, I knew that I wanted to follow the example of Christ, who I know to be the Son of God and the very embodiment of him. And as an adult, I have set a challenge for myself and to measure every word and every action and every decision by the highest standard. I know in every aspect of my life, whether it's as a husband or a father, a businessman, a citizen, a worshiper, or a mayor, I seek to say and do what I believe through what I've studied in the Word of God. Now, I am the first to admit, it's not always easy to discern what is right thing to do. But my study of Scripture through the years has led me to believe that Jesus' relationship with his Father, his complete obedience to God's will, and his love for humanity, all of humanity, was revolutionary and still is today. It is a perfect model for informing and infusing my life, especially in my role as a public servant. I happen to be a teacher every 3 months at the Methodist church that I attend, and we've been studying in the Gospel of Mark, and we see on 3 different times Jesus preparing his followers and us for what he knew was about to be ahead, the Passion. 3 times he talks with them about his public ministry and how it will end in suffering and death, and 3 times they argue. They misunderstand or they redirect the conversation. You remember them. Peter rebuking Jesus' plan, the disciples on the road arguing who's going to be the greatest, and then James and John saying, give me the right side, or let me have the left side. And then his response. It's just great. You got to go back and reread all over it again. In each of the 3 encounters, speaks of volumes about Jesus' convictions about being a disciple and being a leader. Jesus teaches that the disciples must think in terms that aren't of this world, human things, but divine things. And he speaks about picking up your cross and self-denial and the opposite of self-centeredness. And Jesus tells them and us that the one who wants to be the greatest must be the servant to all. And one who wants to be first among you must be slave to all. For me, Jesus' model of self-denial, humility, self-sacrifice, compassion, and above all else, the service to everyone shows us the very ethics of the kingdom of God. Service is love. When I consider the life of Jesus, I see him responding to the needs of hurting people. I witness his attention to both the poor and the rich, men, women, and children on the skirts of cities and society. And I've observed him dining with those whom others may have questioned or even would have challenged the misinterpretation of God's law by the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the ruling body, the Sanhedrin. And I can hear faintly the voice as he confronts Pilate and the Roman governor with that piercing question of, what is truth? As mayor of Dothan, my challenge is to work with many others, commissioners, our city manager, department heads, staff, community leaders, to provide services to all of our citizens. In doing so, we must responsibly manage the resources from taxes and other revenue sources with an eye toward meeting current needs and projecting future ones. But, just like me, Many of my colleagues in city government are honestly trying to make faith-based decisions informed by spiritual values as well as ethics. I would submit to you tonight that in Dothan, Alabama, faith is very much a part of politics. The discussions and deliberations that I come in contact every day on that come from the varying opinions that we each hold, that are influenced by our faith-based convictions and beliefs, and on how to treat the innumerable topics that we are faced with every day. For instance, after this hard, cold January we had, everyone's electric bills were up. Everybody's were up. The city's price, though, on electricity is the lowest in the Wiregrass. Matter of fact, in the state, by some 15 to 25%. And we truly feel like our policies are compassionate. We look at those policies to see, are we being compassionate? But what the severe cold really pointed out was the true issue in Dothan, which is our aging housing stock in some of our districts. It's a challenge. So what is the role of city government? And how do we use our various faith-based convictions and beliefs to tackle not only that issue, but many others? Do we focus our resources on weatherization and housing or a new athletic venue? Do we set aside more money toward education or spend it on roads? Do we help the hungry or the homeless versus a new cultural arts facility? Adding more entertainment options versus spending more money on mental health or prison reform? I can make a great argument for any of those positions. And the Word of God does speak to all of those. Being good stewards of His resources, demonstrating a strong work ethic, taking care of family as well as feeding the hungry and giving to drink the thirsty, as well as welcoming the stranger and clothing the naked and visiting the sick and the imprisoned. We could debate, I think, whether some of these concerns are the responsibility of local. Some will even argue that many of the projects that vie for budget dollars should be funded and managed by churches, nonprofit agencies, and faith-based groups. I don't believe that Thomas Jefferson's letter about the wall of separation between church and ever meant to suggest that our faith has to be separated from our politics. Mahatma Gandhi said, "Those who believe that religion and politics aren't connected don't understand either." Throughout my campaign for mayor and since being elected, I have spoken many times about my spiritual journey. I have quoted Scripture, I lead prayers, and I share my faith without apology. Dothan citizens know who I am and to whom I belong. I can't be anything other than a believer in God and a follower of Christ. And I wouldn't want to be. Fortunately, my religious upbringing at the two different churches gave me an appreciation for the continuum of Christian understanding and a variety of biblical perspectives, and my friendships with citizens of other faiths have led to a great respect for spiritual conviction and inspired service to others in many forms, to working with colleagues to govern with compassion and humility and mutual respect. I appreciate being here tonight and wanted to share my feelings with all of you about, and I appreciate the invitation, and would love to answer any question you have on any topic concerning this or anything else. Anyone? You're tired and you want to go home. I usually would have someone planted in the audience to ask questions. You're all good? Good, yes.
Going forward,
Yes.
what do you think Dothan's greatest challenges are?
Greatest challenges as in money and funding, or greatest challenges as in we are always going to have another stormwater project. We are always going to have another sewer project. We're always going to have another road project. They're never going away. So there is the challenge of they're always. We've got 4 outlined, what they call stormwater basins. What all that means is that's where when it rains really hard, this is where the water collects, and those are our 4 worst, areas. Girard is one of them. We have 60 in the city, and we've only identified or prioritized 4, which will cost some $60 to $80 million to fix. That's just the stormwater. That's not even addressing all the other issues that we will have. That's with infrastructure needs and maintenance is with us as long as we're a city. So just people have to get their minds. It's the unsexy and glamorous part of the job. I mean, nobody wants to talk about sewer. I mean, and we got to spend $30 or $40 million on sewer again. It's not popular. But I think that taking care of those needs, making sure that we have the proper revenue in place, that we can keep the maintenance up, because we don't want to get behind again. I worry about revenue. Our largest source is the sales tax, as well as our electrical rates. 2 things could erode the sales tax, and that would be, of course, a bad economy again, and 2, online sales. Online sales continue to grow and grow and grow and grow, and so that's eroding that part of our tax base. Unfortunately, we are and this is me included, we are a very tax-averse people in the Wiregrass. And anytime we talk about raising taxes or fees or anything, we all go crazy. And we don't need any more taxes, any more fees. But it's I think education is a huge on my list. Now, I hope it's a huge on others as well. We don't have a Mobile port. We don't have a Redstone arsenal. We don't have the corporate capitals like Birmingham does, but we have people, and we need to invest in ourselves. And I can't think of any better way than investing in education and our workforce training. Yes, sir. Sir. Yes, sir.
Since the shooting in Texas, how many churches in the area have come to your office or the sheriff's office, if you know, looking for help to establish some type of security in their church centered around their members of their church?
Well, I can speak to at least one, because it happens to be the church that I attend, which is First Methodist. And they had already had some kind of plans in place, but we've never had an officer on campus before. They do now. And they have been working on a plan for safety. I know just from people talking, Calvary Baptist has some kind of plan. I think that it's unfortunately a topic. I have a meeting on Friday with the new superintendent, school superintendent, and Chairman Schmitz, and we're talking about school safety and how to move forward with that as well. And it's going to require funding. Here again, it's the money thing. It always comes up. And we need some more school resource officers. Those are the policemen in the schools, and we need some plans on how to keep our children and grandchildren safe. And it's a huge concern. So I think that everyone, unfortunately, need to have a plan, and I think they need to have some kind of active shooter training, just in case. Yes. It could be. You would have to do a lot of vetting, because you couldn't just take just anyone. Not to say that a vet's not responsible, but if you're going to put someone in a school setting with a gun, you've got to vet them pretty well. I mean, they got to be trained as well. I mean, the whole thing of giving teachers or principals' guns. I mean, I'm not going to weigh in on that, but you would have to be a lot of serious training in order to put a gun in someone's hand. In my thoughts. Uh, it's a great question, and it's one of the issues that I have a lot of concern about, because we do have in districts 1 and 2 a lot of old aging stock, and a lot of them have no options of where to go, even if they wanted to get out, they can't. Their rent may be $300 or $400, and their power bill could be $400 or $500 or greater. You can't say, well, they just need to move. Well, they can't. They can't move. And we don't have enough options of affordable housing. What now the politically correct term is workforce housing. We don't have enough of those options. The city is completing a comprehensive housing study in which it looks at all of the issues of housing, from seniors to multifamily to the transitional housing. Someone gets pushed out of their home, they need to stay for 3 months. Anything and everything that the housing study is coming back, and it should give us the kind of that our community leaders use, make some of the right decisions. Affordable Housing Committee. It's amazing how things happen, and you just got to think a lot of this is divine. But we've had pieces of opportunities before, and here it's just almost like all the planets and everything aligned, and the housing authority has envisioned themselves. That was huge. They're not only looking at themselves as a property management company. In other words, if you were born and raised in Johnson Homes or McCrae Homes, that those places were meant to be pass-throughs. They weren't meant to be where you were born and grew up and went off. It was meant to get you on your feet and then move on. But it got to where people moved in all of those projects that we have and never got out. And so we've had a lot of things that have come together. And I think for the first time in a long time, not due to any one person or anybody, but it's all kind of coming into play. We are going to have to touch on an issue, and I'll go ahead and throw it out there, and you can catch me afterwards and say, well, I don't think you need to do that, Martin. But most municipalities our size have some kind of landlord-tenant ordinance. For lack of a better term, it's a renter's policy, or if you want to tongue-in-cheek it, you could say it's a slumlord ordinance. We don't have anything in Dothan, and so we have to talk about it. And I know it's scary for a lot of people that may already own 100 homes that they're renting out to people. But we at least got to start a conversation of how do you get it going. And it may be you grandfather in, or you take 4 or 5 years, but having some kind of minimum standards on housing would help some of the families. The other thing is, most people don't know, and you may not even noticed it on your bill before, but we have what we call Project Care. And it's on every one of the bills that come out. And it allows all the other citizens out there an opportunity to donate. I mean, $5 a month, $10 or whatever. You just check it, and then it'll add it to it. And that money goes to a designated 501(c). Right now, it's the Dothan Rescue Mission. Monies will go there. Then people can go there for assistance and help. So we have some things that are in place now that we just need to do a better job of communicating. If someone comes in and their bill has normally been, $400 a month, and now it's $800. It's doubled. We will allow that the portion of that over their normal bill to be made over 3 months. We have what we call budget billing, which you can take after you've been on the city of Dothan for a year. You can average your billing out so that you don't have the highs and you don't have the lows. It kind of takes it and stretches it out so it's more manageable. You don't have those, because people that are living from paycheck to paycheck, they get one bad month, then all of a sudden they don't buy medicines. They get one bad month and they don't know how to help their family or their parents or buy food or clothes. I mean, we have that, plenty of that in Dothan. So anyway, it's a big concern. I think that the issue we were just talking about is one. I think feeding people. There are a number of their children, during the summer that when school is out, they're not guaranteed those 2 meals a day. And so we have to fund those things, but I think it will be a fairly easy and help plug in and find ways to supplement them and make sure that children because for no fault of their own, they're going to because they're not at school. There are I think other issues. I think in education, I think all the schools they're coming to from homes that are not blessed with a situation, and they need role models and mentors and people that'll come and spend a little time. It wouldn't take much. You can't go and read graders are, and it. I think anything in Matthew 25. We have a homeless population. Homeless situation is tricky because there are a lot of them that are homeless because they want to be. They don't want to be brought into a house in a situation. I had somebody come by today. Really works with the homeless. There's the tent city down in there, and the city provided them with trash cans before, so they can don't have scattered trash. They can trash in there. One of our trucks will go by and pick it up and move on. But there's some sanitary issues, where to go to the bathroom. So even though we have a homeless population, just our poor is probably have out there. Just when you're coming down, you go blocks off of your beaten path, and you're in a part of our town that you may not ever see unless you do it on purpose. And I think that's probably a bigger issue than the homeless. The harbor downtown is doing a good job of reaching out to the poor and some of the homeless, teaching classes and feeding and clothing and I think that and it doesn't have to be, even though the Methodist Church is a part of that, it doesn't have to be. It can be any church, any nonprofit could help them, and they're doing a tremendous job, tremendous work.
All right, last question.
Yes, sir.
What do you think is I started out in town. What do you think is the best thing that Dothan has going? Besides the
I was wondering if that was the answer, and this is a question, isn't it?
You can't go wrong.
I could have said Peter Wong or the Nativity, and it would have probably been right.
Narrowed it down to two.
No, again, I know this it sounds political and hokey, but I think that our people is our greatest asset. Um, we how many times I have been a part of a new company wanting to come into the city, and invariably, almost unfailing, they say it's because when we got met with y'all, the city and the county and the state and everybody came together in order to make this happen. See that in other places. That's what they'll say. We don't see the kind of kindness and the working together that we see in this area. And so if I had to off the cuff, that. Thank y'all once again. I love being here. Come back anytime.